Okay, folks, this is just a little introduction to how to enter data and formulas into Excel. Excel is a spreadsheet program that we're going to use for our data analysis and graphing in bio class this semester. If you haven't used a spreadsheet before, this might be helpful, and if you have, you probably can skip this because it's real basic information. So when you open a file in Excel or any spreadsheet, you'll see all these different rectangles. Each one of these rectangles is called a cell. The cells come in columns. Columns go up and down, and they come in rows. Rows go sideways. So each column is indicated by a letter. So this is column A, column B, column C, column D. Each row is indicated by a number. So this is row 1, row 2, row 3, etc. And so every cell has a unique designation, which includes a letter and a number. So you can see this cell is highlighted. It is cell B4, column B, row 4. B4 is right there. It tells you what cell you're in. If I click here, I'm in column E, row 7. E7 is the designation for this cell, and that is indicated right there, that cell is highlighted. So that's fairly straightforward. If I want to enter information in a cell, I just highlight it like this and then start typing. So let's enter treatment 1. That tells me something about the data that I'm going to put in Excel associated with cell B4. To codify treatment 1, the writing in cell B4, after I've typed it, I type enter or return, or I can simply use the down key or the sideways key, the arrow key, to move around to navigate away from that cell. And now treatment 1 is codified in cell B4. Now for treatment 1, I'm just going to enter some numbers. So I enter the number. Again, I hit enter or return or use the arrow key, and the number will then be codified in those cells. So I type 2, and then I move away from that, 34. Now that's in that cell, 12 in that cell, 11, 45. So there's some numbers for treatment 1. Note that when I go back to that cell, you can see the number here in the cell, but you'll also see the number up here in what's called the formula bar. And the designation for B9, so that says B9 has the number 45, and the number 45 appears here in the cell itself. So that's all important when we talk about formulas. So I think I'll enter numbers, random numbers for another treatment. Treatment 2. And I'll just enter some numbers that I'm making up here so that we have some other numbers to fiddle with. Again, every time you type it in, you enter or return or use the arrow keys to navigate away from that cell in order to codify that information in the cell. So that's what you do to enter data. And then you probably want to save it and keep it, because obviously once you enter a bunch of numbers and it's data and you lose the file, well, that creates a whole nother mess. But you all know about that from lots and lots of different kinds of things you might do on the computer. Okay, so when you were in elementary school and you learned about formulas and arithmetic, you wanted to add 2 plus 3, you would type 2 or write 2 plus 3 equals. And you do sort of the same thing in Excel, except for you tell Excel you're entering a formula first. So you type on a cell where you want 2 plus 3 to appear, and you type the equal sign. Equals tells Excel now it is ready to do something with the numbers. And so then I can type 2 plus 3, and I hit enter, and I get the answer. So now here's the answer, but you look up here at the formula bar and you can see the formula. You started with that equal sign and then 2 plus 3. And so that if you made a mistake in a formula, or you need to check something, or you needed to revise it, you can do that then in the formula bar, and the answer will appear in the cell that you've designated. In this case, it's F7 is the cell, and F7 is indicated there. So you have a lot of information as to where you are. So you would do the same thing if you wanted to subtract 2 from 2 and 3, so you take 2 minus 3, you have the equal sign, 2 minus 3, and you get a minus 1. So again, the formula is there, the answer is there. If you wanted to divide 2 by 3, 2/3, then you get the answer. And again, the formula is up here, the answer is here. The one designation that isn't exactly the same is the multiplication, because when you were in elementary school, you used an X for multiplication, but in a spreadsheet, the X is a letter. And so you use a star in order to indicate multiplication. So you would go to *3, enter, and then you get the 6, and you see the formula up there and the answer there. So that's basic arithmetic, basic formulas. Now you're saying, well, why did I type the numbers in there if I'm just going to retype them in formulas? Well, you can use those numbers to do the same thing. So perhaps we want the difference between treatment 1 and treatment 2. We want to know if those two treatments, how big the differences are. So we're going to subtract treatment 2 from treatment 1. So in this cell, I type an equals, and then I just can click on the cell for treatment 1, hit minus, click on the cell for treatment 2, and you can see B5 appears here, C5 appears there. I hit enter, and I get the answer. So now I don't have to re-enter the numbers 2 and 23. I'm just subtracting whatever is in C5 from whatever is in B5. And now I can use that formula. I want to do that for all of the numbers. So I can copy and paste it. So I can go copy and then move to the next cell, paste. And look, and instead of copying it as B5, it copied it as B6. So now it's using these two numbers. And I can paste again. And now it's using B7 and C7. And I copy again and paste. And now it's using B8 and C8. And I'll do it one more time. Okay, so now I have a whole column, which is treatment 2 subtracted from treatment 1. And I can just hit enter and everything's happy and I've got those numbers. So that is really useful to do. But one thing you noticed, it changed, right? When I typed it, it was B5, and then as I copied it, it changed the relative position of the cells it was indicating with the formula as I copied it. Now that's handy for this kind of thing, but maybe I want to do something always uses the numbers in B5 and C5. I don't want it to change and say, okay, it's using B6 and 3/6 or C6. So these are relative designations. In order to make it always use the information in B5 and C5, you do another weird thing in Excel. So I'm going to indicate it here with an equal sign. But then to say I always want you to use B5 and I always want you to use C5 and I always want those numbers, then I use a $sign. So I would go $sign B $5 minus $sign C $5. Okay, so now I do that, I get the same answer, but when I copy that formula, go up here and go copy, and I paste it one cell down, I get exactly the same number. So it didn't change like it did here to the next row of numbers. And so that is just a subtlety, a little idiosyncrasy associated with spreadsheets. When you first just type the raw cell indicator, that is an indicator of the relative cell position, and you have to use the $sign to say, I want that cell always and forever to be whatever is in that cell, in this case B5 and C5. Okay, so that is a little bit about formulas and a little bit about entering data. and we'll move out from there in the next little video.